Okay,
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages,
are you ready for the most dramatic, one of the most dramatic chapters?
did you start this?
Yes.
That's going.
Um, so welcome. Today we're gonna look at chapter 18 of Exodus. And chapter 18 introduces us to what we know about Jethro. Jethro is Moses' father-in-law. And this is the first time that he meets with the people of Israel after they left Egypt. And they're going to now, it begins the episode of receiving the Torah in Mount Sinai, receiving the Ten Commandments. In the Hebrew Bible, that is divided to also sections, to portions, not just the chapter. It's named after him, and this is very pertinent to what we do here in Project Genesis. This class today is going to be about what we do at Project Genesis, because what we do is we remind you or anybody who is Jewish or non-Jewish that the Torah, the law that God brought from heaven, is not meant for Jews alone. It was meant for everybody. So this chapter tells us that. If you ever want a quote, or if somebody asks you about that, this is the chapter. And what it is introducing Jethro, who is Moses' father-in-law, and he comes to greet the Israelites just before they're going to receive the Ten Commandments in Mount Sinai. And we'll read the text and we'll see how important it is. But the portion is named after him. So that's just right there is the first clue that the Torah is not just for the Israelites. It's for anybody who wants to come under the covenant. So Jethro, he was the priest of Midian, and the Talmud tells us he knew all the religions of that existed in the world at that point. And of course, they were all pagan. They were all pagan religions. This is the first time that we have a religion or a way of life that believes in one God, that puts everything together, that says when you move from New York to LA, you don't have another God. Well, maybe in LA they do have. But they have definitely idols. but it's the same God. So I remember that my religious experience moving from Israel to New York was that I spoke to God in Israel, and I've never been outside Israel before I was 22, and I through Europe a little bit, but New York was kind of the first place I settled. And I remember that our conversation, I knew through how God speaks to us through life, through signs, through the correspondence that we have, that it's the same God. And it was this amazing experience that I may have moved from Israel to New York, but God has always been in New York too. So that's really the experience, the religious experience that Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, the people of Israel want to bring to the world. That God is not dependent on time and place. God is infinite. It's us who are changing the time and place and phases in our life.
So just to say, we, back in Project Genesis, when we did the book of Genesis, that was really a good insight that I got. When Abraham is moving, he starts out in Iraq and he goes all the way up into Turkey, then all the way down into Israel. So he knows now that this God is big. He's big. He's still following me. I'm still in communication with him. So this is a different kind of God, because all the other gods in his life and the world were national or whatever, local city, local town, whatever. They all had different gods. So now that God is revealing himself, and this is the big lesson for Abraham. This is a big God. This is what's going on here. So he's going to start the journey.
Yes, the God of the journey. So what we read is the beginning of the chapter 18. It says, Jethro, the minister of Midian, the father-in-law of Moses, heard everything that God did to Moses and to Israel, his people, that the Lord has taken Israel out of Egypt. Jethro, the father-in-law of Moses, took Zipporah, the wife of Moses, after she had been sent away, and her 2 sons, of whom the name of one is Gershom, and for he said, I was a sojourner in a strange land, and the name of the other was Eliezer, for the God of my father came to my aid, and he saved me from the sword of Pharaoh. Okay, well, we can just spend about 10 hours just about, just on this this paragraph. But what it means, twice it says here that Jethro was the father-in-law of Moses. In one short paragraph, why do you have to repeat that? That means that it's very important that he's his father-in-law. So what does that mean in this context? So Moses, of course, we know at this point, is the leader of Israel. He performed miracles. He is, think of somebody who is a big CEO of Microsoft, right? But when he comes home, his wife tells him to take the garbage out. It means that Moses, even Moses, has a family, and even Moses has to be to adhere to some familiar or standards in his own life. And there are a few things here that we have to unpack. So he has a father-in-law, and we know that before Moses left to go to Egypt, even when God said to him, go, what did he do? He went to his father-in-law to ask for permission to go. And that's the point. The point is that still we have to be respectful of our elders, of our family, and the leaders. So even Moses had a leader, and that was his father-in-law. And that father-in-law was not Jewish, right? He wasn't Israelite, but yet he honors him and respects him. The whole portion is named after the portion that the 10 Commandment is received in, is named after a non-Israelite. There are only 2 portions in the whole Torah that are named after non-Israelites.
And remember, a portion is a section of the Bible, and there's 52, I guess, 52, one for every day of the year. So the Torah, not the Torah, the Torah goes through each section, goes through the yearly cycle. So it may encompass 4 or 5 chapters, each portion, and that will be read on Saturday morning. They take the Torah scroll out of the tabernacle. Okay, take the Torah, the Word of God, out. They open it and then start reading, and it's a continuous reading. The scroll just gets turned each Saturday, each Sabbath, and then at the end you have to re-roll it. And that's another story. But anyway.
Yes, so this is a big deal in the Jewish world. You have to understand every time we get to this portion of reading the Ten Commandments, it's the only portion that people actually stand up when we read this portion because it's the Ten Commandments, and we reenact that event. So for that portion of the Ten Commandments, the Torah is received in Mount Sinai is named after Jethro. It's a big, big deal.
And this is going to be, just sorry again, but there's going to be another big jump in Christianity as well. Jesus first says, I've come to the people of Israel. And he didn't go to Samaria and all these places until there's another breakthrough there that happens. And now all the nations are going to be called to come to Jerusalem. So there's a universalist appeal in Judaism first, that this is given for the good of the nations. And eventually that what happens in Christianity, we take it all around, the name of God and the Ten Commandments. So we just obviously share that. So it's going to be a big step for Christianity then too, to say, are we here just for the Jews or the Gentiles as well? So it is going to be a universal call to everyone.
Right. So there are other ways to look at that the Torah was meant for the world. One of the other questions about this, how come if the Torah was given to the Israelites, how come it was not given in the Promised Land? Why not wait until they get to their land and then give them the Torah there? So that's another evidence that it was meant for everybody, because the desert, it was given in the desert, and the desert doesn't belong to anybody, the wilderness, which means that by default, it belongs to everybody. It's a neutral place that everybody is welcome. And remember also, the Israelite did not leave by themselves, Egypt. There were many other people who left with them. So the point is not necessarily being genetically Israelite, although, of course, the bulk of the covenantal people were Israelites that came from Abram, Isaac, and Jacob, but there were many in-laws, many people who married into it, and still, of course, grafted into it, just like in Christianity. So that's important to understand, that Moses he's still a human being, and he's not God. At the top of the pyramid, he also has to give honor to his elders. And then it says about Zipporah, his wife, that her father brought her when he came to meet the people. So what does that mean? So there's a conversation about this. When did Moses leave her? When he went to Egypt, or just recently? So, but we either way, there's a conversation about it in the Talmud. At what point did Moses leave her? But what we see is that Moses left her. He was too busy. He was too dedicated that he couldn't have marital relationship. He had to leave her somewhere with the kids and go and be on the mission. So I don't know if it directly relates to the priestly idea of not being married, and then
Yeah.
when Paul said, "Don't be."
Well, there was the tradition too starts at Qumran, where these are Jewish priests and people, different folks that left Jerusalem because of the corruption and all the rest, went down to Jerusalem, and they lived, many of them lived celibately. So they were purifying themselves for the coming of the Messiah. So they were waiting. And then a little note, when we didn't get to that yet, Moses is still alive, but he's buried on Mount Nebo. And if I asked the guy that when we were at Qumran, All right, so here's the big Dead Sea. It's a big, long, kind of oblong circle. From your perspective, Jerusalem, it would be here, and you go down, and then the baptismal site is here on, you might say, like at 2 o'clock or 1 o'clock on the clock. And you go this way and you're here, and this is where Qumran is. It's on the north part of the Dead Sea, but on the western side. So what a perfect place. If you're waiting for the new Moses to arrive, that's what they're praying for, waiting for. Wouldn't it be interesting to build this monastery? It's really pretty much like a monastic life. We'd recognize it as such. And right across is where Mount Nebo is, and that's where Moses is buried in a secret grave. He didn't want anybody to come and worship there or whatever. So he's buried, they don't know where, but it is on Mount Nebo. So I said, wouldn't it be interesting? Maybe that's why they built it here. Every morning you get up, you're waiting for the Messiah, you're waiting for the new Moses, and he's over there, straight across. And so it's an interesting idea, I'm just been there a lot, so I put the pieces together as I see it.
And who said it in Christianity that don't worry about getting married?
Yeah, well, St. Paul, and Jesus says it himself. He says, if you can do it, if you feel called, don't be married, because and get into the kingdom. I don't know. I was just home and I finally got to see a little bit of The Chosen. I don't know if you've seen this TV series, or whatever it is, movie series. And the whole question there was really interesting about Peter and his wife, what happened there and how that worked, and back and forth. And so it's been a tradition coming out of Judaism that entered Christianity and has persisted in the Catholic Church. And the Orthodox Christians, Orthodox like Greek Orthodox, have a married priesthood, but they also have a monastic life, and they get their bishops from the monastery. Because people are people, and if it's a question of my kid or your kid going to college, and I'm the bishop, it might happen easier for me. Being a bishop, I have access to lots of stuff. So the Greeks said, okay, no married men can be bishops. You could be a priest, and okay, that's a parish, but a bishop is over tons of churches.
But the idea is that when
That's just
St.
one.
Paul
Yes,
said that, meaning don't get involved in earthly life, because the heavenly life is
and you're going
around the corner.
Your heart will be
That's
divided. Your family and your people.
So we see this example of Moses. Now, Miriam and Aaron, his brother and sister, later on, are talking about him derogatorily, that he has not been with his wife. And then God summons them and rebukes them. Don't talk about Moses like this. And he gives Miriam leprosy for a week because she spoke badly about her brother, if you remember that. So this is the gossip about Moses. Like, who does he think he is, that he separates from his wife? He's that holy that he needs to separate from his wife? So, but we see here something that we have not seen before, that this is the first time that we hear that Moses separated from his wife, to somehow that the work of God requires us, or somehow it involves separating from the marital relation. What happens later when they stand in front of the mountain, Moses tells the people, and that's one of the commandments that did not come from God, came from Moses, when he tells them, for 3 days, don't be together, men and women, separate. So this is how the idea of men and women sitting separately in synagogue started. It came from here, that when you come to worship, it somehow, you have to separate. So In our synagogue, at least, there's the urban legend or the country legend is that there was a woman, Esther Brown, that I met at her 105th birthday. And then she died on my birthday. It was my first funeral in the synagogue. She said, guard the synagogue. And then she dies. And then, so the urban legend is that she, at a certain point, it was an Orthodox synagogue, and men and women were sitting separately. And there's always a women's section in the synagogue. So sometimes it's above, sometimes it's on the side, but it was above. The people who came to my synagogue in Greenport know that it's a balcony on top. So she came down from the balcony and she said, I work with my husband, I eat with my husband, I sleep with my husband, I want to pray with my husband. And she came and sat next to him, and from that point, that synagogue became egalitarian. Yeah, conservative. But we know that traditionally this is where it comes from. That whole idea of that the work of God requires somehow a separation. Okay, and then the big question in the Talmud, when it says Jethro, the minister of Midian, the father of Moses, heard everything that God did to Moses and Israel, his people, and he came to meet with them. So the question is, what did Jethro hear that made him come and meet them? What did he hear? Did he hear about the 10 plagues? Did he hear about the miracles on the water? He could have heard a lot of things. So it means that it's this something specific that made him make the move and come and meet them. Now, it's not just meeting them physically. You have to understand. Jethro is considered in the Jewish tradition to be the first convert to Judaism. Some say he did not convert. Why? Because at the end, he doesn't stay with them. He does go back to his land. But either way, whether he converted or not, he definitely connected himself to that covenant. He understood, as someone who knew all the religions of the world, that there's something here that he did not encounter anywhere else. And we know that he was rejected by many people. How do we know that? Because he kept saying, the Talmud tells us that he kept saying, all these religions that I know, I've studied all of them, and there's something missing here. They're all pagan. How do we know that he was rejected? As any prophet, right, that ever points out to the lacking of the kingdom, the kingship, is always has to run away, right? Always persecuted for telling the truth. So how do we know that he was rejected in many ways or was persecuted? When Moses came to the well, when he met his daughters, remember the other shepherds did not let them get water for their sheep. Moses had to intervene and roll the stone and let them drink. So that's how we know that actually he was not popular for what he was saying. Okay, so what did he hear? We will continue to read, and we'll see what exactly did he hear. Now, again, we think of course, there was a big miracle, and the Israelites, God saved the Israelites. But let's see what exactly. There's one thing that we say that is the biggest miracle in the Exodus from Egypt, and it's not the 10 plagues. not the miracle of the splitting of the sea. It's not all that. I'm giving you just a heads up, because even the way I'm setting it up, you know that that's not the biggest miracle. There's one miracle that is above all of that. And let's see. So in verse 5, again, the third time that it says, Jethro, the father-in-law of Moses, came to Moses with his sons and wife to the wilderness where he was encamped by the mountain of God. He said to Moses, I, your father-in-law, Jethro, have come to you with your wife and her 2 sons with her. Moses went out to meet his father-in-law. Look how many times the father-in-law, the honor that he gives him. He goes out to greet him halfway. And he prostrated himself and kissed him, and each inquired about the other's well-being. Then they came to the tent. Moses told his father-in-law everything that the Lord has done to Pharaoh in Egypt for Israel's sake, all the travails that had befallen them on the way, and that the Lord has rescued them. Jethro rejoiced over all the good that the Lord has done for Israel, and he had rescued it from the hand of Egypt. And Jethro said, Blessed is the Lord who has rescued you from the hand of Egypt and from the hand of Pharaoh, who has rescued the people from under the hand of Egypt. Okay? So, yes, the miracles, but he's not referring to all the miracles. What is he referring to? He's referring to the fact that a nation, that the Israelites were able to come out of Egypt. Forget all the miracles, forget all the pyrotechnical and all the cinematography. The point is that a nation came out of a nation. And that is what he's referring to. Because the power of Egypt was so strong, so was just the physical coming out. It's about 400 years later that a nation lives with another nation and they still had their own identity. And then they were able to come out, to be extracted out of it. 400 years. I would say the miracle of the modern state of Israel and the exodus like that my parents had to go through from Yemen, and of course all my friends and my generation, people who came out of all the nations of the world to modern Israel, I would say that's even a bigger miracle if we look at that, because that was 400 years. We're talking about 2,000 years that my family have been to Yemen, and they were able to come out with their identity intact. They spoke Arabic, of course. They had the dress, but still they had their identity. They spoke Hebrew. They dressed their own way. They had their own food. Of course, they had to eat kosher and all that. That's the biggest miracle. Do you see that, or do you think that there's a distortion here? Maybe the biggest miracle were the 10 plagues or the splitting of the sea. Does it make sense to you now that this is the biggest? That's what the Talmud says. This is what Jethro saw or heard, and that was for him the main miracle.
It's kind of, you do really see a lot of times that the United States and Israel are a mirror. It's flipped. So out of Egypt came that one people, and here is America, so many people becoming one. So the many become the one. So the American journey here is kind of unique for the world too, but in an opposite way, that We, in a sense, I don't know Czech at all. You know, I have a few foods that we passed on. That's about it. We don't know much else about the culture. And the Irish culture, I'm a little more close to. There's more Irish running around here than Czechs. Not so many Czechs to, you know, check in with, so to speak, but, so we, no pun intended. So it's just almost an opposite thing. So it's interesting how God is, as the story goes, so it is amazing after 2,000 years, Hebrew is the only language that had mostly been lost, but now is used in many places, of course, all over Israel. And millions of
It
people
was
now
lost
speak it
as a
as a
spoken language.
language, yeah.
It was always kept as the language that Jews, of course, studied the Bible.
Right, but there's no other people in the world that have kept the language alive, that brought it back. And that it's used now in public and regular discourse. So all the other languages, thousands of languages are lost now, these little tribal languages and groups and all. So that, in how many more decades will it be before, Swedish will be gone? Who knows?
In America, I mean.
No, in Sweden.
So, oh.
In Sweden.
Well, think of America's about, it's not even 400 years, it's 250 years. And it's, but think of even Jews that came to America and how they've assimilated and adapted and all that. So imagine taking them out now, right? So we a lot of times I say to people, we're going to Israel. Come with us to Israel. And they say, well, maybe next time or next time. It's like, next time. You have a state of Israel that you can go to. For 2,000 years, Jews could not go. Or if they went, it was always, under a different occupation and different empires. So imagine that they would all rise up one day and leave. So that's really the biggest miracle, and that's amazing that happened.
Do I understand that the miracle was that they weren't assimilated into the Egyptian culture?
Yeah, so of course the Israelites assimilated, absolutely. We said what was the percentage of Israelites that left Egypt? You remember that? 20%. 20% left. And some say that even less than 20% that left. So think of the Jews in America, for example. How many are Orthodox? How many are conservative? How many are Reform? And how many are not affiliated and not observant at all? So if you take the 10%, there are only 10% of Jews all over the world that are Orthodox, which means that they keep their identity separate. They can go and be, of course, part of the American society, but they keep their identity separate. On Friday night, they stop working. Wherever they are, they're going to stop working. They're going to eat kosher. So if the company has lunch, serving lunch, they're not going to eat it because it's not kosher, and they'll have their own food. So that's really what it means to keep your identity separate. They'll wear a yarmulke, meaning they'll be distinctively Jewish in their clothing. So that's really the Talmud tells us that the people, the Israelites that were extracted, were those who kept their identity. And of course, these were the people who eventually then were willing to put the blood on the doorpost, right? Because the mezuzah is the identity. This is a Jewish home. So they were, of course, the minority of the Israelites, but three things that they kept their identity separate: their names, their language, and their clothing. So these are the three symbols, or the three identifying elements that if you keep, that means that you keep your tradition. So a lot of times I see, Italian names, right? I don't know if Italian Americans have any specific like dress, something that you wear. No, I guess not at this point.
A lot of pizzas for so long.
Yeah. Right, well, but they'll wear, maybe a big cross or something that would identify them maybe as as Italians, but this is the idea, these three things, the names, the language, and the clothing. Okay, so then, now Jethro, this is a very, very important reading today. And it really is about taking the particular into the universal. So it's very much like what Christianity has done to Judaism, is taking the particular and bringing it to the universal. So now what Jethro is telling Moses, he's telling him, verse 12, Jethro, the father-in-law of Moses, took an elevation offering and feast offering for God, and Aaron and all the elders of Israel came to eat bread with the father-in-law of Moses before God. So first of all, we see that they can offer, that he, not an Israelite, can offer to God. And in the temple later on, and the tent of meeting, because they have built the tent of meeting, but they have not started operating it yet. Why didn't they operate it yet? It's not operational yet. Because there's something is missing there. The commandment, the tablets are not there yet. So the car is built, but it needs the ignition, right? What gives it the energy? So the fuel. So it's built, but now they're going to put it. But they're offering something here already to God. And we know that even in the temple, anybody could have brought offering. It wasn't just my house or the house of all nations. Of course, the offering was supposed to be a kosher offering, but anybody could bring it. And actually, there was a section in the temple that was the nations for the what's the name of it? For the nations,
The offering for the nation.
there was a section in the temple. I forget literally a section in the temple that was for the nation.
For the non-Jews.
For the non-Jews, yes. There was a women's section, the nation section, and of course, the men and the Israelites.
Now notice, of course, it's bread. Okay, so there, you're gonna see bread go all the way through, of course, into what we talk about with the Eucharist. So bread is a very important substance, so.
But this is the sign that Jethro connected himself, whether he converted or not, he connected himself to the covenant. They broke bread. And the otherwise they wouldn't mention this in here, right? They offered together to the same God. He put himself in the same covenant. So for the most part, most opinions say that he did convert, that he did become an Israelite at this point. But some say he did. Now, the next section is a beautiful, beautiful idea. He is concerned about his son-in-law, Jethro, and he was an expert. He was a religious expert. So what he's suggesting now to Moses is something that is practical. It's not something that is necessarily Israelite or specifically Jewish, but it's called the Jethro's suggestion or Jethro's offer. And let's read what he's is telling Moses. He's saying, it was on the next day that Moses sat to judge the people, and the people stood by Moses from the morning until the evening. Now, when it says by Moses, the translation is a little bit off here. It says they stood on Moses in Hebrew. It says it's al Moshe. They literally stood on top of him. So think and I'm sure you've seen it many times when there's a person who is an expert and he comes to people come to him or her and surround the table and they all have questions or they have a long line and the person has to reply to all the questions. So I know there was a Rebbitzin is a wife of a rabbi. And her name was Rebbitzin Youngrice, and she was very famous. And her husband was a big rabbi, and he died, and she kind of took over, and she used to give big classes and conduct high holiday services of her own. And but she said, and I went to a few of her. She passed away already, but I used to go to her classes in the city many years ago, and she used to say after the class, "I will be here until the last person asks their question." So the class was about an hour, but then for 3 hours she would sit there and actually stand there, and people would stand in line, and they knew it doesn't matter how long it would take, as long as they're standing in line, they'll get in. So that's the most you wait otherwise is for the Disney line. You wait for 2 hours. I was just in Japan. I came back last week, and it just happened that I was able to go, and my sister was there, and I went to meet her and the family. But I also went to the World Expo, like the World Fair that every 5 years is in a different place. And it was in Osaka this year, and I went my first time going to an event like this. Unbelievable. But I waited 2 hours to get into the Japan pavilion, which was amazing, but it's a long time to wait for anything. So, but imagine that these people would wait the whole day. It says from morning to evening. People would stand there because they wanted to hear Moses's judgment. Now, some would say in the Talmud, it says that there's no early or late in the text of the Torah, meaning things that are told to us now could have actually happened later on. So actually, referring to this Moses judging the people, that maybe it happened actually after they received the Ten Commandments. And everybody wanted to hear from Moses himself. And after he came down from the mountain, they want to hear him. But what his father-in-law is saying, the father-in-law Moses saw everything that was that he was doing to the people, and he said, "What is this thing that you do to the people? Why do you sit alone with all the people standing on top of you from morning to evening?" And Moses said to his father-in-law, "Because the people come to me to seek God." Okay, so I'm going through something in my synagogue, I don't know if you've heard or not, but it's pretty much around the same thing here. Because what he says to him, it says, Moses says, when they have a matter, one comes to me, and I judge between a man and his fellow, and I make known the decrees that God and his teachings. Okay, so he is the court. He's judging between people. What should you do? But then the father-in-law of Moses said to him, the thing that you do is not good. So imagine somebody comes to Moses, and especially if you think that he just came down from the mountain, seeing God, right? And you are disagreeing with Moses, which means that to me is actually the evidence that Jethro already converted. I don't know if you got that or not, but he was argumentative already and have this back and forth with Moses, two Jews, a few opinions. So he was already saying, oh no, Moses, I don't care who you are, you can be Moses and I'll disagree with you. So what is he saying? He's saying something practical, not something religious, but actually religion is, and some would say Judaism is not I don't know what religion is. It's a way of life. It's a way that the society organizes itself. And you've heard many times that people say, I don't do organized religion. And I always say to them, don't worry, we're not that organized. And that's the point. Because a religion is really, many times it comes to the practical things. You think it's in heaven. And Moses tells us in Deuteronomy before he departs, he said, never say that the Torah is in heaven or beyond the sea or it's somewhere else. No, it's right here. So the practicality of things is the religion. So don't look anywhere else. We sanctify our actions. We sanctify the little things that we do in life. When your wife asks you to take the garbage out, that's part of the religion. It's honoring your wife. It's doing this together. This is just life is just a mechanism of showing God's action. I always say the story that when I went to Alaska 2 years ago, I was at a place called the North Pole. It's on the way to the Arctic Circle, and it's a whole town that is Christmas. It's you come whatever. It's always Christmas there, and you have Santa Claus and the stores there. It's all about Christmas. It's called the North Pole, and they have the reindeer. They're the actual reindeer with their
Antlers.
Antlers, which was amazing to see them up close like that. It's incredible. It's like an animal grows that on top from their brain. It goes like a tree. It's unbelievable. But one of the scenes that I remember thinking it was really very amusing, but very profound. And I took a picture of it. I have a picture of it. So there's this Santa Claus that comes out. I see in the back of the building. We walked around and we see him come down the stairs with the garbage. Literally taking the garbage out. And I took that picture thinking like, this is exactly what this is about. Even Santa Claus, when he goes home, Mrs. Claus said to him, take the garbage out. So Moses is his father-in-law is telling him, you need to be practical. You need to be more organized in your religion. Right? So what does he say? He says to him, now he said, you will surely become worn out. You as well as this people that is with you. For this matter is too hard for you. You will not be able to do it alone. Now heed my voice. I shall advise you, and may God be with you. So he's a religious expert. He knows all the religion. So what he was missing is not the organization. What Jethro was missing is the word of God. God bless. Is the connection, right?
Got the word
That
out.
truth. But the organization he had, and he said, hear me out about the organization. And this is where we learn something very important. And this is why the name of the portion that the Torah is received in is after Jethro. That you have to listen to anybody who says something wise. Maimonides said that everybody is, you have to learn from everybody. It doesn't matter. And the Mishnah, also the oral tradition tells us, I learn from all my teachers. Everybody who teaches me. It could be a student that teaches you something. It could be a child. It could be anybody that teaches you. You have to listen and you have to learn from it. So this is a very, very important paragraph and a place, because we tend to think that, again, people treat their faith differently. That if you're not Jewish or you're not Christian or you're not Muslim, right, you should only listen to the people who are in your silo. But this is telling us absolutely not. God doesn't have, nobody has monopoly on wisdom, on God, on the organization. We have to always evolve. So when people say, but the Bible condones slavery, I would say, no, it has slavery, but it wants to come out of slavery. It wants to evolve. And that's really those lessons that you have to always evolve. Okay, and what is his suggestion? He says, now heed my voice, I shall advise you, and may God be with you. You be a representative to God, and you convey the matters to God. You shall caution them regarding the decree and the teaching, and you shall make known to them the path in which they should go and the deeds that they should do. And you shall discern from among the entire people men of accomplishment, God-fearing. So these are the qualifications. He's saying appoint a board. That you should have a board. People that will help you to administer to the people. Okay? So what do they have to be? They have to be those representative. They should be regarding the decree of teaching, you shall make known to them, and you shall discern from among the people men of accomplishment, God-fearing people, men of truth, and people who despise money. Okay? And you shall appoint them. So these four, and we'll look at these four criteria. And you shall appoint them over the people as leaders of thousands, leaders of hundreds, leaders of 50s, and leaders of 10s. So what is he creating here? The organization, the justice system. So what Moses was offering them is, of course, justice. But you have to have a system. Otherwise, you can't really answer all the people. So this is the lower court, the appellant or middle court, and then Supreme Court. So Moses is the Supreme Court. So only the big things should go to Moses. And they shall judge the minor matters. They shall judge, and it will be eased for you, and shall bear shall bear with you. If you do this thing, and God shall command you, meaning you have to check with God that it's okay to do that, and we'll talk about what the issue here, then you will be able to endure, and this entire people as well shall arrive at its destination in peace. Okay, let's now try to unpack what this means. So first of all, no matter what you do in life, even if you're Moses, you need a team. You can't do things alone. And I'm sure you're wise enough at this point to agree with that. But your team or the quality of your work is always who is your team. And I remember when I was interviewing for jobs in the corporate world, they said that yes, everybody has a good resume, it's very competitive and this and that, but at the end, you will be selected if the people who interview you would like to go to lunch with you. That's really the ultimate criteria, because many people have certain skills, many people have all kinds of things, but if they can't work with you, it's not going to help. So you need to be friendly, or you need to be with the same kind of from the same cloth, right? Yeah. So Moses, of course, we know that he's exhibited these 4 things. So men of accomplishment. So what is the men of accomplishment? People who have done something, right? When you see, okay, they started an organization, they led something. So when I see people who, let's say, want to be mayors of major cities, but they have no qualifications, they've never led any institution, they never did anything big, it's worrisome, right? To take that kind of a big ship and now to lead it, the big thing. So they need to be men of accomplishment, or people of accomplishment. Well, in this case, it's men. I'm sorry, I didn't write the text, but this is but also it says, and this is very true. I've seen it too in my life. If you want something done, give it to a busy person, right? Because a busy person knows how to do things, how to move things around. So that's what they need to be, accomplished people who can do things. Then God-fearing people, of course, right? This is kind of a given. Men of truth. So you can be God-fearing, but you can say, well, I don't really want to get involved here, right? I'm not gonna, if I see something, I say something. The rabbis tell us that the temple in Jerusalem was destroyed because people of leaders of the community that did not intervene, that didn't say anything, that they thought they were too holy to get kind of, mess their, put their hands in something like that. They didn't want to be drawn into political conversation or whatever conversation it was. But that's not these people. These people are not afraid to say the truth. And of course, we're at a week after the assassination of Charlie Kirk. It is horrific. I mean, it was clear. I see it as they shot the president. It is on that magnitude, because it was clearly a political assassination of a person who was telling the truth. Okay, you may agree or not agree with him, but he did it in the most honorable way and engaged in a conversation and did not shy away from these conversations. So these are the people that you want. And then the last thing, people who, again, the translation, it said they despise money. Not necessarily, it's not, I wouldn't translate it that way, that hate money, because money is not it's not an issue. That money can be good, it's a good thing. It's not, it's just the method. But in Hebrew, the word is betza. Betza is for money, like bribe, that they hate bribe, they hate, they don't make their decisions because of money. So it's not that money is not necessarily that they hate money itself, but they don't direct their lives according to money. They walk in the ways of God and what they believe in. And then God provides, or of course, everybody needs provision.
Yeah, there's also the connection.
They can't be bought.
They can't be bought.
Yeah.
Exactly that. They can't be bought.
And then in Hebrew too, there's a connection between blood and money. Is that the
Same
word,
word,
the
yeah.
same word, or it's a root or
Right.
something? So if you steal somebody's money, you're stealing their life, you're stealing their blood. So the idea of justice is very big in the Old Testament about bringing justice to the
So
poor.
would the word money also be substituted for greed?
Yes, betza, the word in Hebrew is not directly money.
Right.
It's the translation is, I wouldn't translate it that way. Mostly I agree with this translation. It's a good normally translation. Here I wouldn't translate it that way. They hate, yes, bribe, and they can't be bought. They go with their faith. So that's the idea. So, but what's the issue? There's a big issue here, and this is one of the issues that I'm going through now with my congregation. Really not the congregation, really the board. That ultimately the point here is that the people wanted to hear directly from Moses. The board here is the institution that's supposed to help the rabbi, right? Moses is called our rabbi. He's the first person that we call the rabbi. And in Hebrew, when we refer to Moses, just like when you refer to Jesus, you say Jesus Christ. You don't just say Jesus, right? We say Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, our rabbi. We never say Moses. We say Moses, our rabbi. So Moses, the rabbi, the people wanted to hear directly from him because he's ordained. He received the law from God. So the issue becomes, and this is the danger too. So what Jethro introduced here is the double-edged sword. On one hand, absolutely, you need a system, you need a board, you need a team. But what if that team, that institution, becomes the end and not the means? And it does everything in its power to self-preserve. And then the rabbi becomes superfluous. It's really about the board. What do you do then, right? So that's the point. No, if you have those people on the board or in that system that understand that they have those four characteristics, then they would always understand that they're there to facilitate between the people and the rabbi. They're not there for themselves. So, but that's a danger because we know that many institutions rise and fall because of those boards that at a certain point forget what the point of the institution is. So that's the danger. Okay, so if you have that healthy institution, then you can ride together. So these were eventually became those 70 Sanhedrin, the Sanhedrin, the court of Moses, the elders. He had elders and people who assisted him. But it was always 70 plus 1. The Sanhedrin was always 70 plus 1, not 71. It was 70 and 1. To remind ourselves that there's always the 70 facilitate for the 1, for that connection between, if we take the example of the President of the United States, I would say too. The people select the president. And of course, the president needs Congress. It needs, yes, and sometimes the balance of power, it's okay. But ultimately, the people selected their president, and they want to have direct access to the president. And this is just a facilitation of that. Okay. Moses heeded the voice of his father-in-law. This is a beautiful phrase that we always quote, because it means that we learn from anybody who has wise things to say, and did everything that he had said. Moses chose men of accomplishment from among all Israel and appointed them heads of the people, leaders of thousands, leaders of hundreds, leaders of 50s, and leaders of 10s. They judged the people at all times. The difficult things they would bring to Moses, and the minor things they themselves would judge. Moses sent off his father-in-law, and he went to his land. So this is the end of that episode about Moses' father-in-law in terms of, did he convert or did not convert? And those who say that he did not, he definitely came under the covenant, but he did not fully or officially convert. Look at this verse and say, but eventually he went back to his people. So how do we see this verse? It's similar to what we saw with Abraham. So the Bible is all about conversion. It's all about moving from one state to a better state, right? That's what it's all about. It's the journey. And then Abraham started the journey with God, and God said, keep going to the place I will show you. And it says that his father, Abraham's father, went with him from Ur-Kasdim when they started, when they were pagan, when they were idol worshiping. And then he went with him to Haran, but in Haran he died. And then only in Haran, God spoke to Abraham saying, go forth and leave your father's house and so forth. And what it means here and what it meant there is that in the process of conversion, of the process of development, you can't jump from one state to the end. It's a process. And people who are the previous generation, people who were very entrenched in their mindset and lifestyle, can't make the full journey. They can go so far, and then you need to continue. So think of your parents, of course. They came from a reality and they brought you to a certain reality, and then you took it forth. So this is what it means. It means that even if he understood and was totally there in understanding the covenant, he still was not able to fully make that journey. He had other reasons. He had whatever, his life in Midian. He needed to take care of the mortgage. I don't know what he had, but he was not able to say, okay, I'm letting all that go and I'm making that leap into the Israelite covenant. Okay, we'll stop here. Well, next.
Could he brought it to where he went when he went back?
Yes. So next time we'll start with chapter 19. So this was chapter 18 that we discussed today. So now we'll open for question. And so what Carol was asking is, can it be that he, instead of going with the Israelites, went back home and taught the Midianites now about how to be monotheistic, or how to, at least kind of teaching them? Yes, absolutely. There's no doubt about that. So he could have been an emissary of that. So he could have been that he converted, but yet he wanted to stay where he was. And there's something about, because this is a story of conversion. And many times so in Judaism, when you convert, the rule is that you get a Hebrew name and you become the son or the daughter of Abraham and Sarah. So you forgo the names of your birth parents. So you don't say, the son of Stanley and Roberta. You say, the son of Abram and Sarah. But I found that, sometimes there's some situations that I feel like, they want to mention their parents, their birth parents, even though they're Jewish, but still they want to acknowledge their birth parents. So that the conversion is a process too, not just one leap. That's what really what it's telling us. So this is the story of Jethro. It's a very profound story in Jewish life. And if this story wouldn't have been there, imagine that Jews who are very particular would have been even more particular and would say, no, it's all about only what Jews say or what Jews teach us. We can't learn from anybody else. And that's a challenge, of course, because Jews live all over the world. So what do we take from our environment? What do we not take from the environment? Of course, you have to discern. Can't take everything. But what it's showing us, that if something is wise and worth, of course, taking in, you do it.